So, my recent illness, still ongoing a little bit, and whatever, got me into certain different habits that I've been in. Namely, yeah, I'm still as addicted to raid as I had been, but and perhaps enjoy it less, which kind of led me to, breaking away from the game in order to try, to do more reading, really. So, like today, I sat outside and read during a time period where I would have come up here and played my game a week ago, well, 2 weeks ago, whatever. The nicer weather and everything provides me with a more interesting, it makes it more enticing to go outside and sit and read. And I've been reading a lot recently and started going outside as I started feeling a little better. But what it hasn't done is it hasn't brought me to play my game, which is a shame. I'm hoping I can get back into the flow of playing it. Especially, there were a couple of days where it was hitting 90 degrees, and it gets too hot up here to play, at least during the day at all. But during the night, it cools down significantly. Speaking of which, I've got enough windows open. I might as well open this one and air things out up here. But anyhow, the interesting thing is what I'd really like to do, which is break the raid addiction. Yeah, that's just not happening. It almost happened a couple of times with had a couple internet outages. Then yesterday, I think it was, maybe the day before, the game itself they screwed up the platform that it's based on so that it wasn't working correctly. All kind of shit like that. All these signs that I should stop. And I did drag myself away from the game and sat down and read today outside. But that took away from the time I'd be up here and stuff. Anyhow, being in peace of that sort, and also reading what I was reading, which is kind of interesting because it takes an interesting look at sort of a complex relationship schema. It got me to thinking about things in my life, and in particular about my own relationships, and then something that dredged up from a while back, which was, I don't remember, Leonardo DiCaprio or whatever, Leonardo DiCaprio, seated with this very young, like 19-year-old model who he's apparently seeing at the time. And that, at least a couple of different people that I know just lashed out so hard against this. And I can see certain aspects of it, right? I can see, look, who's interested in an older person, right? But it wasn't really just this ageism type thing, which I can actually kind of understand. There's an ickiness factor to that, right? Just as to straight people, at one point at least, and perhaps still ongoing in many, there's an ickiness to the thinking of like, a homosexual couple or whatever. It's just sort of this, but all of it was couched instead in sort of power dynamics and stuff like that. Yeah, there were some people who reacted with, ew, and stuff like that. And I get that, right? But that really bothered me, that it was put in that place. And I don't think it would have been couched that way had it been, say, I don't know, a 35-year-old actress who hadn't really broken into things yet and was maybe getting her step up in the same way, or potentially getting a step up in the same way, and potentially there would be that same kind of power dynamic in play. This is what, it really troubled me. It feels like people were covering their ick reaction with sort of this, politically correct, yeah, there shouldn't be a relationship where there's any kind of power differential. Look, shit happens, right? And I don't want to accuse, I gotta put my pizza in. I'll be back. I don't want to accuse him of leveraging his position to get, someone more attractive than he could get otherwise. I don't want to accuse her of being a gold digger, anything like that. What I'm saying is simply, you don't know what the hell's going on. You can have your suspicions, but people were vehemently, stating, at 19, she's not fully developed mentally, she can't possibly be making these decisions. Well, then make her a child and make it illegal for her to have sex or to have a relationship of any kind, because honestly, one can get in as much trouble with someone their own age, in terms of like what you might be subjected to, both through emotional issues and whatever. And these people would have no problem with like a 26-year-old dating a 19-year-old. None whatsoever. So again, it just seems to me that it's cover, that there's some hypocrisy in there and whatnot. But when I go to, you don't know what the hell's going on, you might say, look, our society, etc., creates a certain, desirability just automatically in younger, beautiful women, right? And it creates a certain desirability automatically in men who have power and wealth or whatever. There's something, it's not maybe natural or whatever, but it's just the way the society has developed over the centuries. And, you can throw around terms like patriarchy and whatnot, and maybe they're perfectly true. But regardless of whether they are or not, they're a factor. They're a part of the cultural inheritance. And you might want to fight against that broader subject, but to point out a couple of individuals in it and essentially slander them for it seems completely unreasonable. Now this touches me close to home because my past wife was basically young enough to be my daughter, and I don't feel like there was an inordinate power dynamic imbalance due to our ages. And certainly I wasn't doing anything, for her career-wise or whatever. So there was nothing along those lines either. But people were impugning DiCaprio with this idea that, well, the only reason you would want someone that young is to control and manipulate them. And that kind of struck really home to me, because I don't see that at all. I mean, I would absolutely love it if I could find a younger, beautiful woman who, was rich and powerful enough to just control me, not dominate or anything like that. I have no interest in that form. But, just take care of my life and make it work fine, and keep me as a pet, basically. I can't ever trust that again, but, I would have no objections to it as long as I'm free to pursue, my own interests and whatever. And obviously, this woman had her own career and everything. Really the question was whether or not, she's getting a boost up or anything. Like, who cares? There's people who simply connect. And there's people who have differing tastes and whatever. And these tastes actually are aligning with cultural norms to some extent, right? So it seems to me absolutely, understandable outside of this idea of manipulating someone else, controlling someone else. Now, ever since I was pretty young, I've had a certain amount of sort of dominating, controlling type aspects to me, which just sort of exist. Whether I was with somebody who was older than me, as happened in one or two cases, not by a lot, approximately the same age, or younger, which happened with both my wives. Obviously, the second much further. But I also seek out strong enough people that they resist that, right? That they know. While they may put on a certain aspect and give in to me in a lot of things, the things that are really important to them, they don't. They have the strength of will to stand up and, say no or whatever. And, that's part of, that whole portion there is part of the, what I consider the negotiation period of a relationship, right? When a relationship first starts, you might be so enchanted with someone that you're swept along by things that inspire them and excite them. And this is an important facet to me, is because, at least some of my interests, my gaming and whatever, quite often I have to be able to pull somebody along into it. And, because the number of female board gamers is much smaller than the number of those who are not. And certainly the level of gaming interest that I have is very, very high. So, and it's something I feel that I absolutely must share with someone I'm with. But I also have other facets that, likewise, will only be negotiable during that period, right? And quite often what I found is that the negotiations, what comes out initially, then sort of degenerates on both sides, right? That's just sort of the nature of a longer term relationship. Maybe the first couple of years is sort of a honeymoon period in any relationship. And then things start breaking apart as, you find, those concessions that one or the other made don't really matter anymore. And things kind of drift off. So like with my past wife, we essentially stopped gaming at some point or another, which to me, that would have been a deal breaker early on. But by the time the relationship had formed and all these concessions had been made and whatever, well, I'm so used to having her around that, along with other things like, they just fell aside and it became, this is just a person who's sort of a part of me and I'm a part of them. And what can you do about it, At the very least, it's better than family because you didn't get to choose your family at all, right? It's not that I dislike my family. I just don't feel any great connection ever with them, for whatever reason, like once upon a time maybe, but that faded by the time I was in my late teens. And my brother, I barely got to know at all, I hold a sort of love to them, but it's more sort of out of duty and whatever, you know. And that duty grows in a normal relationship. Now, I think to myself, I feel completely fucked. Because, first of all, I'm not attracted to an older person, to someone my age or even close to it. Just as I'm not attracted to, say, a fat person or a person who's of, and by fat I mean, you know, me, or even quite a bit less fat than I am, or someone who, you know, doesn't have an attractive face and body, count the fat in that, but, you know, across the board, or someone who is of a different sex than I am, and I'm using that as the, you know, maybe not genetic, but phenomenological, phenotypical sex, rather than anything to do with gender, because honestly, I just kind of don't believe in gender. I would have very little problem with someone that I found attractive who thought they were male, who considered themselves male. I might have some trouble with their pronouns. That's for other types of reasons. Who was attracted to me, and you know, I would be fine with that, as long as, you know, I couldn't tell that they were not female. They were not a female member of the human species. Or sheep. You know, I got my thing for those fuzzy little butts. No, but, you know, so I look at that and I'm like, well, yeah, but who's going to be interested in me that I'd be interested in? There's got to be something really wrong with them. Well, I've tended to be with people that there's something really wrong, but it might have to be much, much worse than it is, than it's been in the past. And I don't know how much worse I can take, you know, than, yeah. And then, so I try to think about, well, you know, look, my wife died in her 30s. Could I cope? You know, she didn't look too bad at that point. She was showing some slight signs of age, but like me, didn't tend to age very much. Not showing emotion tends to do that, and a lot of time on your own, where, you know, where you don't have to show, you know, you don't have to communicate with your face. And, you know, I think, well, you know, physically, yes. How about the emotional state? My pizza's almost ready. I'm going to have to check it again. How about an emotional state, or, you know, stuff along those lines? And so, sure, there's a certain wonder and magic of youth, but, you know, I don't think I had that by the time I was 13 or 14, you know? I really don't. By the time I sort of solidified as a person, I really feel like, so someone like my mother, in her, I don't know, say in her 50s, which is probably the last time I really dealt with her a hell of a lot while she was still sane, showed an exuberance and, whoa, wow, that was interesting. It was like some kind of lightning or something outside, like a ball lightning or something. Weird phenomenon. She showed a certain kind of excitement for things that I can't remember ever showing. I mean, even into my childhood, like at a baseball game, getting excited with every hit ball, thinking it was going out of the park, and no, I can tell it's not. In bowling, getting, or in a game or something, getting so excited by doing well, by winning, whatever. Yes, I get the little trip, but all of it is internal, and it feels like the level of excitement that was accomplished or that was triggered by that external reaction is just so much greater than I can imagine for almost anything. I mean, almost anything. When I do have an excitement over a long term, say I'm working on, I can think of a couple of places this happens. When I'm working on something very, very complicated solution to a problem, math problems, gaming, fixing an issue in a game or something like that, or trying to come up with a core system that I think will work. There's there it goes again, boom, way up high. There's a certain kind of pleasure, and you get the same kind of thing as you're, sort of falling in love. Same kind of, it's sort of this long-term building up sort of pleasure that happens. But none of it is this excitement and this joy of seeing things. And in fact, I do tend to hook in with people who get a great deal of, it's restrained, it's not like my mother, but I can tell that something makes them very happy. Whether it's me telling them about the animals that I saw on my walk, or things that I can do for them or whatever, I can tell that there's a great deal of happiness there. And in a way, it's almost a childlike happiness that comes through. And I do crave that very much, but I don't think that goes away necessarily with age. And in fact, if you found someone, you might say, well, if you find someone who's already who's still got that at a more mature age, maybe that's a better sign, more of a sign of someone you can keep. So from a rational point of view, it feels like, why not? Well, I don't know. Like something in me feels like, I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that, both of my wives left me one way or another at about that same age. That it's just not possible for me and who I am, not physically or whatever, but who I am, like emotionally, etc. It's almost not possible for that to be enough once you reach a certain maturity or whatever. I've always got the hope, but yeah, I mean, it's... And then there's the simple fact that I don't think I have the energy anymore, right? I mean, I just don't have the energy to fall in love with someone again. So this went different ways than I thought it would, and different ways than I wanted to, but it is sort of a solidification of thoughts that I've had trouble expressing, maybe out of fear, or trouble devoting a video to. My defense of DiCaprio and this younger woman actually, had somebody unfriend me on Facebook. Not someone I knew very well, but I was just shocked by it. I mean, her friends were like just railing on this, and I got into, a verbal sparring, textual sparring actually, with them. And I don't believe I was nasty at all to them. But I was steadfast in this, look, you just don't know enough to be able to judge this situation. You're looking at a picture, a couple of numbers, and maybe a gut reaction of, ew, that's icky, which I got no problem with. The people who responded with that, I'm like, yep, I can understand that. When I think about, older people having sex, either with younger people or on their own, when I think about, when I think about certain things that I just don't want to consider, I'm just like, yeah, that's gross, man. I don't want to picture that, And that may be part of the problem is, like, I don't want to picture me having sex anymore. Like, my fantasies, I don't know how much they related to me before, but however I engage in them and outlet them. And we'll leave that for another video, because this one's gone too long for what it is. I had intended to go in this direction, but however I engage in them, they've drifted from being, I don't know, about kind of just who I am in a certain situation sexually or whatever, or with certain people or whatever, to it doesn't feel like it's me anymore. I feel like instead I'm projecting a role for myself that isn't me. And that feels really, really weird. And we're not talking about just like, just the sexual role play type aspect of it. That never felt particularly interesting to me. We're talking more like coming up with a whole life story and everything behind everything, and it ain't me. And I'm like, wow, that's fucking weird. But, it all kind of links into that sexual energy. Anyway, which is intriguing because, in a sense, it's like, I don't think I can enjoy myself as myself anymore. I think I have to become something else. Now, that is probably the driving force that led me to want to act for a while. And, like that whole, I don't want to be me. I want to be something or somebody else. And I still don't want to be me. It's expressing itself more clearly in more defined terms. Maybe I'm just, solidifying what was always kind of there. Anyway, cheers.